Welcome, my friends, to the Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Sean, and my amigo over here is.
I'm Fitz. And it seems like Sean is like either having a really weird background or he's actually somewhere in nature. Sean, what's going on?
Well, I'm in the middle of Alabama here, in the good old state of Alabama. Causing trouble, visiting a friend, and yeah, just seeing the town of Birmingham, which honestly, you would think, what's Birmingham really known for? What's in Birmingham? But it's actually a pretty poppin' place, man. It's kind of like a Portland or Denver or something before it was discovered. So it's kind of still cool.
Okay, so if you're investing in real estate, is maybe then the place to go and maybe scoop something up before it's hip.
That's why we're
But
here.
yeah, but let's dive right into it. What are our topics? Because like we talked about it already, so that we have a little bit in an outline and we want to share some knowledge about our topics. What are they, Sean?
Yeah. So I think today we're going to be discussing accessibility. It seems to be more and more important every single day. We're going to talk about how, it can be a very scary thing in terms of lawsuits, but also it's a very needed thing, right? There's over 1 billion people right now in the U.S. with a disability, so it's a very important thing.
What? Not a
And then yeah,
billion, but
what's
a
your?
million.
No,
I
it's a
hear the
billion.
billion.
Nope,
A
everyone has
billion?
some sort of disability. Yep, it's there's studies. Google just did a very famous accessibility study just on this. So if you're not
Yeah.
thinking about someone's disability, like for example, 1 in 3 men suffer from color blindness.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, my point was just like there's only 340 million people in America, and you said America, I think. So that's why I was like, wait a minute, did you
I
say
think
a
I meant
bill?
the. I think I meant the
Yeah.
world. But yeah,
Yeah, you're right. It is a very, like in the US, like disabilities and all those other stuff is a big topic. Also, we want to talk about price and, yeah, pricing your projects.
yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, so let's start with accessibility here. We'll get through that, and then yeah, let's talk about the pricing because it's a very important thing that'll keep coming up, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with accessibility, it's interesting. So in the web design world, there's been lots of lawsuits in recent years. Some of the most pronounced ones are Beyonce got sued. I think Domino's also got sued. In the e-commerce world, it's huge. If you don't allow every single person to be able to purchase your product, that's discrimination. Therefore, you can get
Yeah.
sued. So it's a very hot button topic for a lot of lawyers out there where they're searching for these
It's
cases
easy.
now.
Yeah, it's easy
Hmm.
money. And we had a story like that too, because like I think like when we met, you had like a project going on, you were very busy. You're just like, dang, I have to do this last minute because I'm getting like sued, or not you're getting sued, but your
No.
client gets sued because it's not ADA compatible, I think it's called, or
Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So ADA is the American Disabilities Act, and it wasn't that they were being sued, but they got very scared once these lawsuits came in. So I think this was probably a month after Beyonce got sued, and it was for a huge amount of money. I wish I had that figure, but it was a lot of money, and so they had all these restaurants in New York City. And we did accessibility studies on them using some tools, and they failed every single one in New York City. So obviously, very legal opening. They were terrified. They were like, we need to close this opening immediately because we can just feel the lawyers looking at us now.
yeah, and
So,
also kind of funny. Like I had like I think last week or so I was like contacting you about that because I'm like
mhm,
I knew you had that situation already going on, and it's like it's really
mhm,
prominent because like lawyers actually are reaching out trying to figure out who has their website updated when they're selling
mhm,
stuff, you know? And I'm just like, oh, I got one of the spam emails, but one of the spam emails was like containing that stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute,
mhm,
is my website ADA compatible? And no, it was not. But I'm not
mhm,
selling anything on that website, so it should be
mhm.
fine.
Yeah. At least in terms of a lawsuit, right? You can't really sue people for damages for an informational website. It's just, maybe you could, but it's just there's not much there. And
Yeah.
just like most things with lawsuits, right? They're only going to sue you if you're really worth suing. So a lot of the times, if you're a small guy and you're not doing ADA compliant stuff, you may be okay. Like, who's going to sue you? What do you have, right? It's like, who's going to sue us? Two little freelancers. Well, we'll just bankrupt. So.
Which is bigger. Yeah, but on that note though, like when you say suing, because on the one side, if you're like listening to this and you hear it for the first time, you're like, oh yeah,
Mhm,
I will win this fight, that lawsuit, that's no problem. But
mhm.
on that note, like you will not win a lawsuit against a person who is on disability because they're handicapped. You will always look like terrible in front of the judge. And this is the zinger.
Hey, we have the first interruption of the episode. Hey, there we go. Had to get at
Yeah.
least one. We'll have at least one cat visit, I think, and the camera will die probably halfway through, I'm thinking.
Got the
But
backup
but
right here.
dang, he's growing people. But yeah, no, and it's a very important thing. I have many friends that suffer from like color blindness, for example, and there's so many things that are just borderline unusable for them. Like for example, a lot of men are in the green orange spectrum where they actually can't see orange and green, and so
Okay.
people never really think of these types of things. But yeah, so I'm almost interested for you. Like, so you're in the video world, right? So in the web world, I think it's kind of easy to think about ADA because it's like a storefront, right? So you have to have ADA compliance in stores and buildings, and so with a website, it's very easy to be like, okay, yeah, you have to navigate through something, and you can't stop that navigation. Now, for you in videos, what's the ADA things you need to focus on? You think?
So here's the part. Like it is like in general, it makes no sense. Like if you do video, it is a visual thing, and it's always discriminating blind people. You could put in subtitles, or you could put in like let's say the captions and stuff. And YouTube is actually really good. It generates them automatically. So what is very nice because you don't technically have to worry about it. But with the for the deaf, for the blind people, the subtitles and all those other things need to be there so that they can be read by software and basically just have a kind of like a text to speech mode. I'm not
Hmm.
that familiar with it in the video world, but I know it is. I don't know if it's required because it should be
Hmm.
required, but it also does not make sense. It's like,
Hmm.
do you sue an artist who like makes paintings now because it's not like, oh, you cannot feel it?
Hmm.
He's selling
Yeah.
something. Technically, what'd you do?
Yeah, no, it's very true. And I mean, and honestly, it just almost comes back down to the fact that like, our, and I don't know this for a fact, but are blind people even using YouTube? So maybe the ADA there is like you just have to make sure that you're also having it where audio people are, right? So blind people are going to be on Audible, they're going to be on Spotify, they're going to be on these kind of music first, audio first platforms. So I think maybe then there's that argument, right? If you're launching anything like a podcast, for example, to always focus on some audio platform because that's probably where those people are, right? They're not going to go to YouTube if they're blind. They're going to go to these audio platforms.
Yeah. On that note, actually, I have to give a little shout out to our Spotify that you should rate 5 stars and subscribe to it because we will upload there our episodes first nowadays. But
Mhm.
as you can hear, Sean is currently in the middle of nowhere. We have like a little bit of connection issues. He's cutting in and out on my end, but on this episode it should be fine. Just that you have an understanding what's going on my side.
Yeah, so if you have any awkward pauses in the video, everyone, just please bear with us. I'm in the jungle. We're like outside of Birmingham. I mean, things are crazy. I had a hawk just like take out like a gopher over there. It's crazy. Things are happening down here.
Yeah, but on that note, like, I personally think, like, yeah, you should try to don't miss out on that because, like, the ADA how do you say it, compatibility is
Complaints.
actually compliance is a bonus because, like, let's say you have a video short, for example, and you put the titles on there. Most people actually don't watch the videos with audio because they lay in bed at nighttime and they're just like, I can't sleep. Let's scroll the phone, and they don't want to wake up their partner, so it is actually a bonus making that. So it will just
Hmm.
benefit you. Or let's say you have a video where there's not a lot going on. Like in our case, for example, we're just like two dudes standing. One is in the middle of nowhere, and I'm in my little room. Also, not really
Hmm.
interesting. But if you have like text popping up and there's some animations and graphics, it is a bonus for you because it's bonus entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, yeah, why not add more, right?
Yeah.
And so within, websites, it's very interesting where, yeah, you have to do all of these different things, and there's always that debate of when are you putting in too much work, when are you putting in not enough work for the disabled people. Like there's a lot of tools out there now that can kind of change your website, kind of on the
Oh,
fly, make fonts bigger, do things like that.
on that
So
note,
it's like,
let's talk about that because, like, what is
yeah.
actually a tool I can use? Because, like, I'm still worried about that thing and I did not implement it, even though I wanted to. There's probably some plugins that you could recommend, or your
Yeah,
services if they would
yeah,
hire you.
yeah, one thing. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick.
Yeah,
This may get
let's
a
do
little
it.
scary. Apologies for everyone. You're going to have an infinite mirror moment here. Um, but let me open up this real quick. If it'll open. Okay. Yeah, bear with me, everyone. Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is scary. Um, yeah. Sorry.
Wave.
Sorry. So now we're doing accessibility on Riverside. So let me actually go to just like a
Huh.
regular website. Let's just go to like accessibility on.
Fitzaey.com.
So let's go here.
Fitzaey.com.
And so let's go here. So you're hopefully seeing the Apple Store right now. So I use
Oh.
this tool called Wave, okay, and I can't talk about this enough. So if you go to WebAIM, I'm not sure like what the actual website is, but just look up Wave, the Web Accessibility Evaluation Tool. I recommend this to everyone, web designers, not web designers. You can pull up any website on the internet, and you can look at this, and it'll tell you what are the main area errors, what are just alerts, what are features, what are so it's really cool, very awesome in terms of just dialing into like what's wrong on a web page, right in front of your eyes. um, and so it's really cool. So it's like, so some of the things just to kind of point out as we just very quickly, we don't need to do a full deep dive on this, but some of the main things that people look for with accessibility is you want to have contrast between text. So like this white text here is doing just fine with it being on blue, but as you can see over here with this little red indicator here, it's actually saying that that's still not contrasty enough. For you and I, that seems like that's totally enough contrast, but even to ADA compliance, that's still not enough contrast.
But that makes
Um,
no sense on that note. This is already like nearly like terrible design. If it looks like, you know what I mean? It doesn't look good anymore because like it is too big and too contrasty. So where do you strike the middle line now?
it's difficult, right? I mean, and that's always been the role of a creative, is to you have to have the constraints of what the goals that need to be met, and then how do you make that aesthetically pleasing. And so this is a good example. Now Apple, you would think, would have it 100%, there'd be no errors, but you can see even here they have 4 errors on their website, and there's 18 contrast errors on the entire website, which actually isn't that bad. So with everyone
What
out there
is
too,
a
take this all with a grain of salt. You'll never be perfect. So almost everything else, even with accessibility, to try to achieve perfection is you're just not going to get there.
okay? So what is a good amount? Like, yeah, can you go on my website? I'm kind of curious, like fitzaey.com or the newforeigner.com, just to make like roasted.
Yeah. So let's say Fitzaey. How do you spell the Fitzaey in
Uh,
this case?
the exact same way as me, fitzaey.com. Yep.
ay.com.
No, the E. You had it right in the beginning. Sorry.
uh,
Yeah.
all right.
Oh, I
So
got an
let's.
exclamation. Oh, and
Oh, he
it's
doesn't
slow.
have it. So we're going to do
Oh,
it. Let's see. All right. So we
oh.
have less errors. You have one less error, but contrast errors all over the place. And I would agree. Like white on tan, that there's people with color blindness that would definitely not be able to see that. So all your, and especially with these being main navigation links, that's terrible. So if you're going to have bad contrast, it's okay if it's an informational thing, like you had said earlier. However, if it's navigation, if it's stopping me from navigating through the space, now we're having big issues. So like here is a great example, really bad contrast here. So something that you would want to do is you would want to add an overlay over this video, some type of color to help create more contrast behind that text. But for right now, I can't read a lot of that text in most of this video. So you would actually fail that. Um, yeah, so
But on the good note, so I'm using Squarespace, and so far it seems like with my Squarespace, I have in general less errors on my website than like Apple. In some cases, besides like the
mhm.
contrast, there I have more. But is there anything that you recommend using for like, let's say, like a small creator, for example?
um, uh, use in terms of accessibility, or what are you?
Yeah, in
Um,
general, what would be the thing that would be like, Fitz, you have to fix this right now, just like out
well,
of a panic mode, or is it like
well,
okay-ish?
so yet again, for you, you're not selling any products on this site. Now, you are selling services, so it could get a little messy for you. The tool I just showed is great because it's free. It's a Google Chrome add-on, so just add it in your
Okay.
browser, and it's a good way to kind of check yourself as you do things. There's other tools out there as well, but this is one of the best, especially for web design. One of the best things to just quickly jump in, see if there's issues. Another issue that it'll sometimes be picking up, I don't see you doing it too badly here, is with headings. Now, a lot of creative people, they say, H1, H2, H3, H4, so heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, and they try to use the H3s because they want smaller text. So in this case, you're probably like, ooh, yeah, I want this small text here, so I'll use an H3, but I want a bigger text down here, so I'll use an H2. However, if you do these out of order, the screen readers are going to do it out of order. The screen readers start at
Oh,
H1, go to H2, go to H3. So in this case, the screen reader would literally go all the way past this, wouldn't say that at all, would maybe even skip this if you have an H1 down here, but it would go to H2. So it would go schedule a meeting for free. Then it would go social media optimized. And then, it would go all the way through this. And then it would do timing is key. It would skip your recent work. And then it would go down to Instagram and Facebook, and then it would start way back up here and do these in order, conventional creative. So by you doing this, you've kind of messed up the order of the website, right? You want someone with a screen reader to go here, here, and here like a regular person, but since you've now mixed it up with your different
you're
headings, the
cutting
screen
out really
reader's
badly.
confused. So yeah, so I'll go ahead and stop explaining this just because I'm cutting out. But let me figure out how the heck to stop sharing the screen in the infinite chaos.
Uh,
If I can.
Yeah, but so far I must say like that was very informative because like I think like this is a really good tip that you have. Like download the Wave add-on to your Google browser and then check your website because like my website for example is not really updated or like even like well taken care of. It's just like kind of like a placeholder that I just started once a couple of years ago or so, and I'm just like, oh, I changed the design and now it's broken, and I should update it. And after I got that one email, I'm like, I definitely should update it.
Yeah, and for everyone out there, I would suggest, go peruse the American Disabilities Act. Yes, it's a little dry and boring. Another big place to kind of go that they're kind of at the forefront, at least of website accessibility, is w3.org. They are kind of like the governing body of accessibility on the internet. So if you want to kind of peruse like what's okay, what's not, they do have things on audio and video on there as well. um, get used to it. Get informative. You don't want the first time you hear about accessibility to be from a lawyer. So
Yeah. So on that note, like I said, you can embrace it and make it like work for you. Like for example, with subtitles and stuff like that, it can benefit you if you have like big contrast and it makes your site more entertaining. Can benefit you as well because like if your site is interesting and not boring, there's also a big
mhm.
bonus. Obviously my website is like not professional because I'm not a web designer, but there's ways to make your site more interesting and appealing, and people will spend more time on it if it's like well designed. And that can
Yeah,
help. Like
yeah.
if you have like text, video, and you hear stuff, and you're like, "Whoa, I'm now fully engaged because it hits more senses."
hmm Yeah, exactly. And there's just certain industries that you really should, if you're doing something in the health industry, if you're doing something in the educational industry, if you're doing something in government, you have to think about these things, okay? Now there's certain industries that maybe you don't have to think as much about it, but yeah, if you're playing in these industries, you have to think about this because it's hugely important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with videos and everything too, I think, it's something that it's a little bit more work for us, but that little bit of more work opens the door for people that you'd be surprised. The bar is so low. So much of the internet does not think about this.
I mean, like, I kind of get that though, because like you have to think about like, let's say you're the startup, like you cannot launch a website, and
Hmm
an LLC and then make everything
Yeah.
compliant. It's nearly impossible. Like the startup costs just making stuff like compliant with like, the more you add on requirements, the more expensive it gets. Specifically, if you don't know what you're doing, because then you need to hire somebody who does know, and then
hmm
it becomes really costly. And most startups are like kind of or entrepreneurs or somebody with a vision or whatever, they kind of cut corners where they can, but you should think about like, when do I add this on, when does it make sense? I don't know what
hmm
that point is because like it's kind of a luck thing till you get discovered by a lawyer, and you better be ready then.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is like I would say just start now, start little. Just like any of us in the creative world, is the first time you were told anything, the first time you heard about octane rendering, the first time you heard any of these terms, you didn't know anything about it. You just had to dip your toes in. So with ADA, just dip your toes in. Start small. Start to in your next project, just spend 5 minutes. Just spend 5 minutes in the planning process to be like, is there any ADA issues with this? Is there anything I see not working out? And like I know you, Fitza, you do a lot of live event things. You do streaming and stuff. So even for you, it's got to be at least 5 minutes. I would say, like, be like, is there anything here that I may be missing? For blind people, people in wheelchairs, or anything like that. Like, you'd be surprised. You may have a monitor way up here, and you're like, oh, people, grandma's in a wheelchair. How's she going to see the monitor? So there's things
Yeah.
like that if you don't have to tank the whole project, but something to think about, just something to add to the list.
I agree completely. It's just like one of those weird things because, like, yeah, it's like very. So it's kind of like discriminatory if you make a video. You want to appeal to a
Hmm.
certain group, and
Hmm.
you most likely like you have your ideal customer. Your ideal customer is not Freddy in the wheelchair who is partially blind or deaf, and then you're just
Hmm.
like, what do I do now? Do I make my video now worse for the people who are consuming it just so it's like fair, or you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it's like you kind of have to, yeah, it's for in the video world is specifically messed up because it's superficial. You don't want to usually models,
Hmm.
for examples. You don't want to have models who are plus sizes, even
Hmm.
though there's a lot of people in plus sizes, and it would be more fair representative. Like to represent the population, and it would be just in general
Hmm.
better practice. But it's like sex sells. So it's like, where do you gauge it on the line? Because like obviously you want it fair and square, but it will sell worse than if you add like certain things. What is like
Well,
messed up?
and I think that's arguable, right? I think sex sells if your demo wants sex, right? So
Yeah.
so it's just understanding your audience. I think, so yeah, if you're doing kind of body positive things, then yeah, you need to be that's your audience, right? Now, if you're trying to go for an Abercrombie and Fitch or some other kind of superficial, sexy, hot company, then yeah, that's your demographic. So it just comes back to knowing your audience. I really wish, like, it's funny how, like, me as a creative, every project I get into, I'm the weird black sheep when I say we should make audience
Yeah.
personas. Like, everyone's like, no, ew, that's such a waste of time. Like, why? Like, you need to know the audience. Like, who's the perfect customer of this video? It's not everyone, so stop pretending it's everyone, right? Like, is it the
Yeah, but on
sexy
the one
people, or is it?
side, you have to think about the audience that is not included. And you should not exclude other people, kind of.
Hmm.
You can aim for something so you hit them and you hit them hard so that they want it, but you still have to
Hmm.
be like accessible for other people. So you cannot be
Yeah,
discriminatory, like just selling to Democrats or whatever it is, or
yeah,
like you can't do that,
yeah.
specifically if money is involved.
Money. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, and I think, like, seriously, it does. It comes down to yeah, it just comes down to empathy. You don't have to tear down the project. You don't have to there's a subtle balancing act. It's doing as much as you can with as little as you can. So just like we do this all the time in all of our projects where, we do what we can without going overboard. So this is just one of those things. Take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, I'm definitely not saying like all of your videos should be body positive and catered towards blind people, and that's not,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
because you're right, you can't do that. It would definitely, your creative style may suffer because of that.
yeah, but on the other side, it can be a great benefit. Like if you do like subtitles, now you can translate them into different languages. Now your video is appealing to a wider audience. Same with like
Hmm.
with those add-ons where they basically have like reading the subtext and blending
Hmm.
in certain things, and it's just like, oh yeah, you can benefit from it, but it has to make sense, and you have to reach a certain size. I
Hmm.
feel like as a small creative is more liability than a feature, but the bigger you become, the less of a liability it is.
Yeah, so start now. Start while you're small. Start to get these habits now, because if you
Yeah.
get down this creative road 10, 15 years and you haven't built these creative habits, you're going to be learning way quick. You're going to learn the hard way. You're going to learn from the lawyer summons. You're going to learn from someone across the table even calling you out and being like, "Why don't you care about disabilities?" If it's say, "Why are you not thinking about these things when you make your
Yeah.
videos?" And don't wait till that moment. Yeah, be ahead of the curve, because yeah, we're small creatives now. Now's the time to just do the new stuff. Change the processes.
Yeah, and also like it's kind of important to like basically like plan in the budget for that because like obviously it
Hmm.
takes some time and habit that you like. Okay, I should put some money to the side to for this thing, you know. So if you're like already 10 years in and you're just like I never done that, now I'm
Hmm.
have to do it, and you don't have the habit and you don't even can justify the cost because you maybe laid everything out in a way that
Hmm.
is like not sustainable adding on this feature for example. But if you
Hmm.
budget everything right for example, then it should be fine.
And we haven't really talked about this part of it, but I'll tell you what, I've actually I can definitely say that I've gotten jobs because I've gotten in the meeting and there's business people, right? These are business people, they're not creative people. And I say, I will not only get you a website, I will get you a website that is search engine optimized and it is ADA accessible. It is not going, it's going to pass double A standards for ADA. Just saying these words, then this guy comes in, I can make a really cool, like, side shifting website. That's what I'm going to do for you. And that's all he has. They're going to be like, yeah, but this guy says ADA, PCI compliance, another thing. Using these words, knowing what they mean, that puts me way ahead of other creative because these business people, they like the look and feel. They get that that's important, but they also know, like, oh my God, this guy's going to stop me from being sued. This guy's going to actually build something that's functional and structural. So yeah, these things, while they may be not sexy, that not sexiness can really get you jobs, I think.
Yeah, so now I'm kind of confused if I want to start with like segmenting my time or with the pricing and the project, you know, because like I feel like both of them would be a perfect segue for this thing. Because like technically you have to structure your projects, you know, and
Hmm.
yeah, basically lay everything out in an order so that you're like, okay, I put this amount of time into like ADA compliance and this amount of time like for like just like the design function and so on. So I think we
Hmm.
should go with that or with the segmenting your time.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, yeah, kind of moving forward into like, yeah, so ADA obviously is a part of segmenting your time on any project and something that, yeah, you need to
I
you need
have
to
the
think about. So
worst segues.
I know you really kind of pigeonhole them in there. You kind of shoehorn them into but that's okay. We're getting better. So yeah, yeah, go ahead, kick us off, man. So how is your segmenting the time these days? How do you feel about it?
So first off, let's talk about it because like it was one of the things that we wanted to talk about on the podcast today. Because like last time you said like Fitz, you need to segment your time better because I'm down here in Florida and you didn't
Mhm.
plan time in for me, and I'm just like, well, my wife just got like into an
Oh,
accident.
you're making me sound heartless. Oh, don't make me sound
No, I'm
heartless. I
just
was so
joking.
understanding. Don't be, oh my God.
I'm
I'm a
just
nice guy.
joking.
Everyone out there, I'm a nice friend. Don't listen to him.
No, he's a good boy. He's a good boy. He actually came to
Jeez.
the hospital and everything. But yeah, it just made it more relevant because like my time was like way, way more not rare or scarce, you know. And I was
Mhm.
like, yes, technically I had some more time, but I did not the
Mhm.
segmenting correctly because like in general I'm doing a very poor job at like segmenting my time. I'm just like
Mhm.
I'm doing first off whoever pays me has priority and then the other
Yeah.
things, you know, and then everything is like that is like kind of the segmentation that I'm doing, what is not the
Yeah.
best. And at that moment basically just showed me like, yeah, I should have, you know, dedicated the free time I had more effectively. And because I don't do it in
Mm.
general, like didn't build the right habits, it just showed more in time of need, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and what's in, and to your defense, when things hit the fan, when there's family emergencies and we're here like on our computer screen and then something over here explodes, it's so hard. It's so difficult. I mean, I've been there too. This year I've
Yeah.
had a few different family emergencies where, I'm sitting next to a hospital bed trying to make a website. And that's not the best way to make a website on your little laptop in a hospital room with shoddy, Wi-Fi. So no, we've all been there. So in your defense, having an emergency with a family member, it really puts everything in a highlight though, right? Of like, wow, how little time do you have in a day
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, and that's what I actually kind of meant because like you were a really good friend, even bringing me food and swinging by, you know, and doing all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was like also like, yeah, if I would have like I had that wedding going on, had to outsource it, had to do certain things, had to edit the wedding while being on the hospital bed, and I'm just like, I did not like I still don't have like the skill like of like, okay, the first 2 hours I do this, then the next 2 hours I do that, or let's say 30 minutes or 15 minutes. It's just like, okay, we're
Mm-hmm.
doing it kind of sorter and just like dragging through it and like, yeah, trying to get rid of the project as fast as possible in a comfortable way instead of like, okay, 15 minutes
Mm-hmm.
dedicated time.
Yeah, yeah. And so in this project, I mean, and you're still working on this project, am I right? Is this still a thing kind of
Yeah,
on your
Yeah,
plate, right? Yeah.
so here was the point. Like I felt like I had to refund the whole thing back because like I hired somebody and it didn't really turn out how I was expecting it or planning to shoot it, but I couldn't do it. So it's not. I tried my best to find somebody to cover me. The guy showed up. He did a decent job, and he was like trying to help out with something that he never done before. So I completely understand that everything else got like, oh, I have to do a
Mm-hmm.
live stream. I never done a live stream. He's trying to help a person to do a live stream, and I'm like, obviously that
Mm-hmm.
didn't work well. But I'm like,
Yeah.
first off, I learned like I need to have a better process in place to teach others what I'm doing, how to set it up, how to run it, what to do step by step. Like the
Mm-hmm.
operations became more like, oh, I need to plan that out so that I can have somebody
Yeah.
cover me instead of like hoping that me or my close friends that I work with are able to do it because they were all booked and nobody had time. And I'm like, yeah, that highlighted a lot of things. So like, I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
times of desperate I don't know how to say it, but basically those times show you really what is needed and where you're lacking. Even though you have a good
Mm-hmm.
excuse in saying like it's family, and I shouldn't do this, but at least you can
Mm-hmm.
still learn like, okay, where do you fall apart first? What is the problem? And I saw a lot
Mm-hmm.
of those moments in like my time segmenting and like basically operations. They're too complex, not simple down. On the one side it's
Mm-hmm.
good so you cannot get replaced, but on the other side it's bad if you have to replace yourself.
Yeah, yeah, and and to kind of yeah, to just kind of root it into the now where you are. One thing that I always try to do, and I'm not successful, is when things like this happen, when you miss deadlines, which I've been missing deadlines too recently, just because of emergencies, traveling, things like that,
Yeah, the
is
two
is make
weeks
sure.
crazy.
Yeah, it's been crazy, and but with when is to really write down what went wrong and try to improve. There's so many projects that like I think like I've done where like something goes wrong, but I forget to write down what went wrong so I can improve it, and then you just keep going on to the next project and next project. But yeah, you're really close to it right now. So for you, I would suggest what exactly could have been better? What are some fail safes that would have helped in this case? And write those down now and get those ready for the next thing because it truly is like having that cushion already built, already assuming things will go wrong and can go wrong and most likely will go wrong on projects going forward. So you have to be kind of ready. So I'm not sure what the answers are for your case. I mean, this is a very special
Oh,
case of
I
something
got the
that
list.
happened.
I got the list.
Yeah, and that's great. And so that's fine. So as long as you keep adapting for the next one and the next one, I think it's good. So for example, for me, I'm always building in as much cushion time as possible now on things. Now I did just miss a deadline, and that was actually a project that had cushion time built into it. But up until kind of I had some things falling apart in my world, it actually was going perfect where I literally had at least a week of cushion on. So like if something was going to take me 2 weeks, I said 3 weeks. And so
Yeah.
having even just an extra week. Now, a lot of people that can be very dangerous, right? Because they're like, oh, I have this space I can fill. So now I'm going to fill up that extra week that I built. But no, you have to be like, no, it's still 2 weeks. That's still my deadline. But then if something goes completely wrong, you're not yelling at your computer and losing it and being like, okay, well, there's no way I can make this deadline. It's 2 a.m. It was due at 6 p.m. last night. That's when you really start to suffer as a creative. I don't know about you, but that is some of my worst moments is when I'm sitting there and the clock has already moved past the deadline. I'm still sitting here, big pillows under my eyes, and I'm just not going to make this deadline.
Yeah.
That's what you have to avoid.
Yeah, it's a terrible feeling, but like you said, like you have to plan in the time, but also like when you plan in the time, then the segmenting the time is the most important. Like it doesn't really help.
Mhm.
Like for example, I had like time set away for the project, procrastinated because I know I have time,
Mhm.
and I waited for the moment where it's getting just close enough to barely finish it. I'm like, now I'm gonna do it, and stuff falling apart is not helping.
Yeah, exactly. And I think some of us, I can't speak for you, but I think a lot of creatives, me included, sometimes we do better in pressure, right? We do better when the stakes are high. So we like to think like, okay, well, cool. Well, I can wait till the very last moment because it's exciting and I can get it done quickly, and I've done it before, and that works, man. But the older we get, the more things pop up on our plate, health wise for us and people around us. Some of us start to
Yeah.
have kids, and then becomes a thing. Yeah, you have to kind of already start to prepare for the fact that, yeah, that your time is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller as we move along life. And so, yeah, so it's hard. It's hard not to fill up that time, just like budget, right? Like, you have extra money in the account. That doesn't mean that's extra money for you to use. It's this weird training yourself not to use that extra space, that extra cushion that you've
Yeah.
made for yourself. You have to leave it there.
Yeah, that's actually like some good advice right there. Because like there was like a saying or something like that. I forgot who did it, but it's basically like if the market is growing like 3% every year, for example,
Hmm.
and you're not growing 3%, you're dying, kind of. So I think
Hmm.
yeah, so it's like a really tough thing to say, but yeah, you have to plan in like the next couple of years you have less time. And if you don't make more time or improve your skills and become more efficient, you become slower and slower and slower because like things don't stay the same.
Yeah, yeah. Law of diminishing returns. It's if you stay where you are, it's going to get worse and worse slowly. So yeah, you really do need to work on improving. Even when the going's good, that's the perfect time to improve.
That's scary
Even
stuff, you know. Things are going well. You're like, oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I've been saying in a lot of different places, even in and outside the design world of like, take advantage of the good times too. I think that's something I've been learning is don't squander the good times. I think some people have a very cushy life for years and years and years. You see it a lot with office workers, especially where they get paid well, their things are getting done on time, they work for a really good company, but they don't grow. They don't push it. They get complacent. And so I think that's going to be part of it too, is that you have to keep growing even when
I
the
used
times are good.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Um, on that note, though, like let's talk about like building the buffer, for example. And the buffer is usually
Mhm.
money or time. And if you have money, you have time because then you can outsource it. So in the end, everything is like kind of money, you know. Like you get more time if you have money because like you can hire a couple people to do nearly anything.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So how do you? So I don't know how to start this now because like this morning I was basically on Facebook, one of my filmmaker film groups, and guy was basically, hey, I made an animation and I basically charged by the minute, and his video initially was about to be 7 minutes. Instead of 7 minutes, it turned out to be 4 minutes. Obviously, the client, not the best client, he's just like, okay, I want to pay as little as possible. After it got down to 4 minutes instead of 7 minutes, he wanted to have a refund. What would be fine if
Hmm.
the police is going to trying to grab you.
Oh, sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. But basically, he also hired people and he paid them. He was the middleman, I assume. I'm just reading into that. But basically, he was operating at a loss at that point. And specifically, like, oh, now it's 3 minutes shorter, so he has to pay back now. And I'm like, yeah, you should never ever pay by the minute or hour because you get just punished. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, yeah. So my thoughts are, I'm sorry. Let me know if you're still there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I would just ask the client, why did it have to be this certain amount of time? Was there an actual need? Was it in your head? You said 7 minutes, and that's just a thing you pulled out of nowhere. Was there an actual need? Like because maybe there was, right? Like, let's say you're making an ad for a movie theater before the movie starts in a movie theater, so it has to be the segmented amount of time, and you didn't make it for that, so it can't fit in that spot. So therefore, the whole project is a failure. Then I would say yes, there's a refund. If it's just something that goes on YouTube or something that goes on social media, then no, there's no need for it to have to be any amount of time. So that's why I've had those types of moments too, where the client for some reason thinks they're getting less because they think 7 minutes. Where what's nice about you and me and in our world, we kind of know that actually the less time the better, right? So in
Yeah.
that case, if I was him, I would just argue like, actually, most people don't sit around 7 minutes of a video.
Yeah.
Honestly, we should make it shorter than 3 minutes. Honestly, 3 minutes is too long of a video.
Yeah, it's
So
really tough to get like somebody paying attention for free, 2 or even 1 minute if your stuff is like too corporate or not entertaining enough. But on that point, though, some people are like, let's say you're an editor. Some people charge by the hour. I'm like, why would you ever do this? Because like,
yeah.
it's like kind of that Chris Doe, like that. It's like I think you showed me Chris Doe with the future, and he's like so good with pricing. I basically doubled like the money I made just from like listening to his stuff. But what it comes down to is like you get punished if you charge by the hour because like first off you take your sweet time, and if you don't take your sweet time, you get punished for being good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah, the time based, yeah, you just referenced Christo. He has a great kind of philosophy of value based pricing. It's about value. It's not about time at all.
Yeah,
Time is not really what people are after. It's what's the value that I can bring to your company. And so one of the biggest easiest examples for a designer to think about this is a mom and pop grocery store business on the corner needs a new logo versus Sony needs a new logo. So which logo brings more value? Which logo is going to sell more products and be seen by more eyeballs, right?
yeah,
So why charge the same for both? Maybe it takes me 10 hours to design the Sony logo and maybe it takes me 20 hours to design this mom and pop logo. It's not about the time, it's about how much value is brought into those logos. Now it's up to you as a creative not to spend too much time on a low value project. But
yeah.
um but yeah, it comes down to value. And this is where like kind of I touched on before, talking in business speak is very important because you need to talk about ROI. You need to talk
Yeah.
about retention of customers and engagement of
So you
customers.
actually had like a good point like a moment ago with the ADHD compliance. That is like a value. I in the video world, I'm just saying like that are the deliverables. And I'm trying to
Mhm.
add deliverables that are maybe free, just like don't take me a lot more time, but it's an extra deliverable that I can do with the same footage, for example. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, exporting your video differently, so it's like more optimized for the phone versus like the computer. And like all those things, they add value, they are deliverables, and it's easier to charge for that versus like, oh yeah, I'll make you a video for 16 hours. And I'm like, yeah, what does that even mean?
Yeah, so I've taken that completely out of my pricing for sure, 100%. Even on invoices, I used to actually put in one column, I used to put hours and then have like a quantity of five, and then here's my rate. I used to do that, but it just invites people to nitpick the hours. It invites that
Yeah.
conversation with you and the client to be like, yeah, but are you
It
using your
raises the
time
eyebrow. It's
wisely?
like, why? Why eight
Yeah.
hours for this? Or just
Well,
8 hours? You
and
know?
people just don't understand the freelance world, right? I can't tell you how many marketing directors I've worked with, and they've said, "Well, you're asking for more money than I get an hour," but then you have to politely remind them, "Yeah, but I don't have benefits. I'm not working 40 hours a week. Like
Or have
I'm in.
ownership.
Yeah, you're gonna fire me in a week after this project, most likely, and that's okay. You should fire me. You only need this one thing, and then I'm on. So people kind of don't understand, and it just invites a lot of stuff. Where now, I've trained a lot of my clients to just be like, how much is it going to be? And I'm like, this is how much. And then I've even recently had a client that said, you know what, I need that to be half. I don't have the budget for that, and that's okay because now we're talking about okay, now I'm doing all the time coordinations in my head. It's not like there's this kind of dialogue. It's more like me thinking like, okay, well then if we do this different route that's a lot cheaper and maybe the results won't be as good, we can get it to half that cost. So you can still have this time dialogue. So for everyone out there, I'm not saying that you shouldn't still be doing this. You definitely should. At the beginning of the project, you should be sitting at each piece of this, the discovery phase, the development phase, the launch phase, and you should be saying like how much time is each of these going to take. And beginning you're not going to know, you're going to misquote stuff. Even to this day I still misquote stuff where I'm like, dang, I spent
But you
10,
get
15
better.
more hours. But you get better. And another thing, like I mentioned earlier, with like, make sure to write things down of what's happening now with this project. I would say the same with time. Write down how long it took you to do something because you're going to forget these things. Using
Or
a time tracking
overestimate.
app. Hmm. Exactly. So know how long it takes you to make a website. If your job is launching WordPress websites, time that. Figure out how long it takes so you know when a guy walks in, because that's something too that I'm sure you've run into where people try to pull a fast one on you. How much do you think this is going to cost? You're in the middle of like your first meeting and they're like, "Okay, Fitzy, how much?"
Yeah,
And
and
if
then
you're
you
not
just shoot a
ready,
number like 300, 500, whatever. And then you're just like, oh, actually, I want this and that. And can we do it that way? Oh, can I have multiple shoot days, multiple locations? You're just like, what? you know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then, and to kind of tie this up too, contracts, I think we've talked about this before too, but you that's where the contracts come in because that's the understanding right there. Now, granted, if you mess up, like the contract's protecting the client too. So if you mess up on all of your timing and stuff like that too, you may
Makes
be
you
shooting
liable.
yourself in the foot with the contract. Yeah, so it's a two-way road, but it's definitely like so in the case of this videographer to get to his kind of conundrum, he should have had a contract. And I'm sure in that contract it wouldn't have said anything about a 7-minute video. Maybe it did, it would have, but like it shouldn't have.
Yeah,
But
that it seems like that was his point. Like I think like he was like just outsourcing animation. That's what I was assuming he did, but I'm like not 100% sure. But on that note, I feel like he should have just eaten the cost, refund like the 3 minutes or whatever it was. And even though he hired people to generate that video at cost, I'm like that is the lesson you learn for doing it by the time, because like on the next project he knows like no, we're making like an animation video. I will get that done in between those specific moments, and it could be longer, could be shorter, but there needs to be like a way to upcharge for certain occasions and not to just
Mhm.
like downgrade because like it's always a bad idea like oh now I have to refund money because I didn't meet my 3 minutes, and if I make it actually 3 minutes longer it would be worse. So that should be never ever punishable.
Yeah, you have to set up these rules. It's interesting because there's a lot of times that I feel like I lose the game that I wrote the rules to. And so
Yeah.
it's one of those things you have to write those rules in the beginning for yourself. And yeah, and in this case, I so did he have to refund the entire thing? Because if the client was like, you have to refund all of it, I'd be like, fine, you get nothing then. You're back at square one too. You don't get to use
That's
any of
what I
this
would do
video.
too. But I
Yeah.
feel like so it was just like a public Facebook group, and there he was asking for the situation what other people would do, and my thing was like it's kind of like imagine you're like flipping burgers for example, and now you're delivering a burger too fast, and now your customer wants a refund because like
Hmm.
you delivered the thing, it's too fast, but it does the same job. And
Right.
now you get punished for like delivering it too fast or it's too short just but it still does all
Hmm.
the things it should do. Like there should be
Hmm.
no circumstance where you get punished for that.
Yeah, exactly. You're
It
still
should be
creating
rewarded
value.
technically, like oh there's
Hmm.
now upcharge for like being more efficient or effective or whatever.
Yeah, and and it's up to us to educate. I feel like a lot of this comes from the office. It's just that worker type of attitude of you need to use all of your hours that are they're getting paid for no matter what, and people and I see it changing. I see it changing. I think people are slowly they're realizing that time doesn't need to be wasted, and people are starting to realize that you only truly do your best work 6 hours out of the day. So I think it's changing. In this case, yeah, for them to be punished for that, I mean clearly not a good client to work with, but it's a teachable moment. It's definitely something where yeah, you have to create these rules at the beginning. You have to teach these clients because I think we assume these clients are on our same level. I think we assume these clients
Yeah,
are also freelance people that understand value and that they've learned from
or
Christo and
different
that they've
level,
done all this
lower,
stuff.
higher, who knows. But the problem is like
Mhm.
he technic in my eyes, he lost that client. He was like competing on time, and like okay, if I make it shorter, longer, whatever, and that determines the price. But now if he wants to change his pricing structure, that client is still hooked to like, oh, I got it for this amount. Why would I pay now more or the same price for a quicker video?
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like
yeah, exactly.
that is already like okay, yeah, cut your losses, just like refund half of it or whatever, or 40%, just to make it
Hmm.
even, and just like move on and learn from it. That's at least my opinion.
Yeah. It's hard to know without knowing the specifics, but yeah, obviously move on. Obviously, that's another thing is yeah, try not to get caught in this kind of legal battle back and forth. But yeah, tough. It's a tough one. That's yeah, but yet again to kind of also defend the client a little bit. Who knows? Maybe the video needed to be a certain amount of length. Maybe
Who
it had to
knows?
be that length. And so therefore he did miss one of the promised things on the project. So
Could
it's
be.
hard. It's hard to know. It's hard to know.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think that is all our segments now. I think that we did. How you feeling about that, Sean? We're like
I
blown
think
through it.
I think we blew through it. I think we blew through it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So how's life, I guess. So what's next for you? I know you did this wedding thing. I know that there's got to be other projects coming. What's
Yep.
coming up? What's coming up in your neck of the woods?
Oh, so I actually got booked for another like performance thing, like a fire thing. So that is going on. I also rented out a lot of gear, and I'm already scheduled like 2 appointments with 2 different people renting out gear. I'm just like, huh, this is not a passive money. And I'm just like, that's kind of nice.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So you're renting out video gear now. Yeah, so
yeah,
that's
and I'm
very
just
interesting.
like, I kind of slipped into that because I have like more cameras now, and I'm just like, huh. So it's a very interesting feeling to just like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, 150 for this, or or $100 for that, and I'm like, okay, and I get it back by when? Nice. Obviously, it's a
Yeah.
lot of trust and risk, but it's very interesting.
Okay. Well, as long as
On that note too, like as we already mentioned in the last podcast, that hopefully goes up tonight or today. Rachel was in the hospital. She got released today, so my girl is back home. I'm very happy about that.
yeah, very awesome, man. So happy to hear that. Yeah, so for, and that GoFundMe will still be up, correct? Is that, well, maybe
Yeah,
by the time this episode's up, it maybe.
yeah, I think so. I'm like right now, like the bills didn't all arrive yet, so we'll
Yeah, they'll
just wait
trickle
until
in.
everything trickles in and be like, hey, can you guys pay me?
Well, that's awesome. That's amazing news, man. And it's cool to hear that. Yeah, you already have some other gigs lined up. I know of a few friends there in St. Pete that are working real hard to hook you up with other gigs. So that's
Oh
it's
yeah,
really cool, man.
yeah, apparently Christy also like with the good burgers, but yeah, that's like more like a connection kind of sort of thing
Hmm.
versus like a gig. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, and I'll kind of say this on camera. Those connection gigs are really important. I know, starting out, I did a few of those with nonprofits. Some that didn't pay anything really, but you have to value how many important people it'll be in front of. So hopefully you have a logo to send her, and hopefully you get that
it's
logo in
already
front of a
pulled
lot.
up here on my PC. I didn't had an email. Now I have an email, and yeah, life is
Very
busy.
good. Yeah, so that's where that sales channel, that sales funnel gets really, really important. But yeah, because that's a very important thing. I can't tell you how many creatives I talk to that are like, I don't know how to get clients. Like, how do I get out there and get these big businessmen to be my clients? I don't hang out with them. Well, things like this are great opportunities. There's plenty of nonprofits that would love free work and would love to put your logo in front of a bunch of businessmen with lots of
They
money. So
do.
that's a big
Uh,
thing. That's one of my biggest pieces of advice. Go work with the nonprofits. Go work with the people that want free work, but will put your logo in front of important people. Now, with that, make sure that these are good places, good nonprofits, because that can get scary too. Don't do the weird mom and pop nonprofits that are going to just take advantage of you.
yeah, there's a fine line, and like yeah, the motivation is like always a thing, and you're right. Like sometimes it doesn't really matter, like for who you do the work. It's really depending like what comes after. Sometimes you get like that one connection that leads to so many more things, and
Exactly.
yeah, but yeah,
Well, what I like to say is you want cheerleaders. I have maybe three cheerleaders right now in the world, and that's where a lot of my work comes from. Get
yeah,
three important people that cannot stop talking about you. Three important people that someone's like, "Wow, who made that video?" Fitzaey did. He's a great. Let me give you his number. He's amazing. He's so awesome to work with. That's the best marketing. Who needs
yeah.
ads? Who needs anything if that's what you have? So
Yeah,
so
word
yeah,
of
so
mouth is like really important because that always leads to
mhm.
more.
Yeah, yeah, and you just have to hit people over and over and over with your name, So if there's an event and you do it this year, even if you don't get that many connections, but you felt like it was a good event, and do it every year. Get your name in front of the same people again and again and again. We're like, wait, that Fitze guy, it's the same guy again. And especially with
Yeah,
you videographers, you have a really good chance because you actually get to connect with a lot of people at the event. You get to actually talk and have these kind of side conversations and be a cool person. So
yeah,
when you show up to these things too, especially as a video person, it's dress nice, be friendly, have some funny topics to bring to people, and
Dave,
bring
no, no, no.
comfort.
You gotta be salty. This is a non-profit thing.
But yeah, so it's so yeah, so I'm glad, I think we live in a world where people do want to help you, but you have to make it easy to be helped. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Everyone wants to help you, but you have to make it easy for them to help you.
yeah. Kind of like sometimes it's like also like you have to provide value and people have to see the value and maybe get hooked on the
Yeah.
value, and some people don't see it, don't understand it, and then it doesn't really matter because then you can give some people a
Hmm.
free video or whatever and they cannot monetize it. It doesn't even matter. So, and you will never make them pay for it either. But if there's like, for example, a yoga teacher who's want to film a yoga class and she wants to monetize that on a website or whatever, she can make like 5 grand, 15 grand, or 100 grand if she has like a big following and they're buying a course. But if you have like, oh, I'm a yoga teacher and there's no following, no business model behind it, the
Hmm.
video will be worthless, even if it will be a masterpiece, because she does not know what to do
Hmm.
with it, or he.
Yeah.
So that is like one of the things where I'm like, yeah, so you can tell if people are willing to pay for a project, then they already have an idea what to do with the video. And it's kind of scary when you have people they're like, oh yeah, we just want a free video so that we have a free video, and that maybe leads to something, but they just don't know what to do with it. So it's
Mm.
like because they cannot justify it. So that's always like kind of a red flag for me, because
Mm.
like
Yeah.
because but on the one side, sometimes it makes sense, and they're just like, "Whoa, this was epic, and I want it again." But that is maybe then still the wrong motivation for the next gig because you cannot upsell
Hmm.
them like now a 2 grand video or a 1 grand video or a $500 video, and they're like, "Oh no, you know." So that's the
Well,
one.
yes and no. I mean, I've actually had a few cases where I did something free, and then next year rolled around. I used
Yeah,
to do this wine festival in Colorado where the first one was free. Rolled
yeah,
around next year, they're like, "You did so amazing. We sold out all the tickets. We had never done that before. This was
nice.
amazing. Everything was perfect." And then I was like, "Okay, well, do you feel comfortable maybe paying a little bit now? Like, let's bump it up to maybe, still not where it should be, but let's bump it up to something." They're like, "Of course, of course." I
Yeah.
mean, because in their mind, just think of as a business person, they're like, "Yeah, you helped me make like 100 grand more. So for you to want now 5 grand this year, yeah, of course. Why not?"
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's always ways how to justify it because it's like kind of like an advertising. So, and obviously, you have to pay for advertising, and that can be labor, videos, or whatever. And everybody has to advertise so that people think about you because out of sight, out of mind, and yeah, life goes on just with somebody else
Yeah.
who's apparently there. So it's not a bad thing sometimes for working for
Mhm.
free if it's under the right conditions.
Yeah, yeah, having people that just love you, man. And just build that love, build that community love. Make it so it's impossible to say no to you. Make it so people have to hear your name from multiple people. That's my favorite thing is when someone goes around and asks different people who should be their web designer, and each one of them independently says go to Sean. That's when it's like, how can they say no? Then
Yeah.
then that then that's value based pricing. Then they come in, then you say, yeah, but I'm Fitzaey. You've had 5 or 6 people recommend you to me, so I'm going to charge this. And if you can't afford that, that's okay. Move on. But you had all these people say I'm awesome. Do you want something safe or something risky? I'm clearly safe.
Yeah.
So
Risk it for the
just
biscuit.
I love it. Risk it for the biscuit.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is like an interesting topic just in general, like free work versus non-free work, and should you do it, should you not do it, at what time, like with the time
Hmm.
frames and whatever. But in the end, it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. We've been there, we've done that, and we're still doing it when it makes sense. But you have to be very experienced. I had like
Yeah.
occasions where I was like shooting with a client, and obviously it was like an unpaid shoot, but I managed to actually get like a sponsor, so getting paid from the sponsor, got product, and got free promo material out of it. Obviously, you could
Mhm.
pay now the model, but if the model is just trying to freeload, it is not like really a nice thing to do. So it's like it should be
Yeah.
communicated, and honesty is like number one, because like everything comes around and goes around. Because like you cannot say like, "Ha, I played everybody against each other." It will come around, and they will figure out, and then they're like, "Oh, I want that
Yeah.
money though," and then they can sue. But if you make everything clear up front, there's usually always a way how to monetize anything and everything if you have enough knowledge.
Yeah, and I just believe in the law of attraction too, where like if you build this kind of attraction for yourself where people are literally attracted to you and working with you, good things will come. It
It just
really
have to
comes
be
down to that.
hard, you know. You just have to look good. I see how it is.
It's easy for me. Actually, hold on. That's easy for me to say. The rest of the podcast, I'm going to wear these sunglasses. So anyway, so my thoughts
Somebody's blowing
are,
his own horn. You got even the sound
right?
effect on background.
There we go. That's the ego horn. But yeah, so build that karma. I don't really jump into kind of the Buddhist track a lot in the show. Maybe we will a bit, but yeah, build that karmic value for yourself, even within your in what you do. Build the good vibes. Build what you've done. Have this track record of being a good person. I've had some negative things happen in the last year that we've kind of touched on a little bit that I think I only got through because I had so many positive experiences with other people that were willing to keep me going through that. So build that community, be an awesome person and yeah, and I know we said, free work can be good, but yeah, definitely be, obviously that's where the gut feelings and things like that come in where you
Yeah.
definitely judge like
Experience.
are these good people? Is this going to help me? So yeah, so we're not saying just do a lot of free work, but yeah, definitely don't be afraid of the free work if it gets you a
Yeah,
lot of
no, I
eyeballs.
yeah, there's always something to it. But I think now we hit an hour and 22 seconds. I think it's time to wrap it up, Sean. Or
All
you
right,
got
well,
any
let's
like
wrap it up.
okay, so you
Yeah,
got any closing statements like, hey, subscribe to fitzaey.com or Fitzaey on YouTube?
I do want to say that, Fitzaey is a great videographer. Go to fitzaey.com. You
Oh,
can also find him on Fitzaey on Instagram. He's always looking at his messages there, so slide in. He is a great videographer. He does such a great job, and it's hard to scare him. So yeah, go check him out. You can check me, Sean Craig Creative, at seancraigcreative.com. That's SEAN. I spell it the cool Irish way. Our Sean
ooh.
Craig Creative on Instagram. I need followers desperately. I need to get my social media game up. Yeah, very
We're working
desperately.
on it.
But yeah, go follow us, engage us, talk to us. If you're watching this video, please, yeah, please just reach out. We'd love to talk.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.
See you, everybody. Be safe.